Angelique Kramer. I'm with Herbs Technology Solutions, ETS, and I'm very glad to have you today that you could join us for this webinar. As we all know, these are some interesting times, to say the least, in the IT world as it relates to security. Our clients, whether they're large organizations or small businesses, are concerned with how to secure and protect their data from ransomware and other cyber threats. And we want to be sure we're providing a forum to address these topics and answer any questions that you may have. We rely on our strong partner relationships to help us, and today we have John Krieger with us, who will lead this discussion. John's with WatchGuard, a leading network security provider. And also, if you have any questions or comments, please type them in the question section box, and we'll have a short Q&A session at the end of John's presentation. John, thank you so much for being with us today, and I'll hand it over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, and welcome, everybody. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today, and we'll just kind of jump right into it. So those of you who are not familiar with WatchGuard, WatchGuard has been in business for about 20 years. Many of our customers consider us to be cybersecurity's best kept secret. Over the last 20 years, we've been evolving our cybersecurity solutions and developing our own operating system and have a unique platform in our UTM firewalls. We're headquartered in Seattle, Washington. We have over 100 distributors and 9,000 active VARs globally. I'll jump into a little bit of what makes WatchGuard unique as we move through this presentation. But for starters, to kind of stay on topic, the focus today is going to be talking about defending modern malware. We're going to cover some of the security trends of malware, how it's being distributed, and why you should be concerned about it. And most importantly, kind of toward the end, what you can do to defend against it. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of our recognition, because this is important for establishing credibility. WatchGuard has been recognized by SC Magazine, 2015 Computing Awards, Gartner's Magic Quadrant for the third year in a row. WatchGuard has been recognized as the sole visionary, which means that we are actually being innovative in our approach to security. NSS Labs just recently came out with a 2017 report putting WatchGuard in the top 5 most secure firewalls out of all the enterprise-grade next-gen and UTM firewalls they tested. We also received recognition from Frost & Sullivan for having the most comprehensive zero-day sandbox emulation tool on the market. So again, as Angelique said, my name is John Krieger. I'm WatchGuard's North Central Territory Account Manager, and I'm up here just in the Minnesota region. So I support Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and a couple of the surrounding states, and work very closely with companies like Herbs and ETS Technologies to help support our customers as well as their clients in this territory. So a little bit about your presenter, just so that you know my background and, again, kind of establish some of my credibility. I actually went to school for computer science back in the late 90s and got a master's education in network engineering. And I was actually a network engineer myself for about 5 or 6 years before I actually moved over into the federal arena, where I was a federal business development manager for about 10 years, supporting the secure fiber networking industry. And I was also a trusted advisor for secure fiber networking to the NSA, DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the FBI, and the Geospatial Intelligence Agency for about 10 years before I moved over into the cybersecurity space, specifically at the firewall level, where I'm now with WatchGuard Technologies. WatchGuard has a very large customer base. So you'll see we're in several verticals. We're in education, we're in retail, food and beverage. We're kind of diversified into the federal systems integrators, which you'll see in the lower left corner, Raytheon. We also do a decent amount with Lockheed Martin, and also some miscellaneous accounts like NCR, the National Cash Register Company, which supports a lot of accounts like Dairy Queen and Buffalo Wild Wings for running credit cards and securing all their stores' communications back to their headquarters. So we're going to jump into some statistics here for you, because this is really important to know. In 2014, according to the Pullman Institute, it took an average of 80 days for people to detect that they had been breached. The following year, it took approximately 6 months for detection in 2015. The year after that, last year, it took up to almost 9 months for customers to recognize that they had a breach inside of their network. And unfortunately, that time to detection is going the wrong direction. And we're going to talk a little bit about why as we move forward here. How are we discovering breaches? According to the Pullman Institute research report, almost 70% of the time, the breaches are reported externally. the top 6 ways that you don't want to learn of a breach: an unrelated party, law enforcement, the perpetrator themselves, or some type of fraud detection alert. Less than 5% of the time, it's actually from your own log reviews or intrusion detection. So surviving the epidemic of advanced malware, I apologize for the small writing here, but there are over 500 different evasion techniques being used by malware to come into your networks hidden. There's over 140 million new variants of malware created every single year. And according to our reports and research, 97% of the executable malware found on the endpoints was zero-day malware. So your antivirus is not going to detect it or even know what it is. Malware growth is definitely out of control. So if you look back at 2011 and 2012, this is how many different variants of malware are created on a daily basis. Just last year, 142 million. So that's about 390,000 malicious programs created every single day. Brand new variants of malware that I guess you could call them zero-day, that are not going to be detected by most AV scanners. This is a report that shows you how many incidences there are. How many of these breaches are actually being reported to the FBI or other law enforcement that customers have been breached? That's 117,000 every single day that are being reported. So malware is definitely the preferred payload of cyber criminals. And oftentimes I call them cyber criminals instead of hackers, and I'll show you why. It's because a lot of the cyber criminals aren't necessarily in there writing code. They're just distributing malware that they download and re-scramble, which we're going to cover here in a second. So automation keeps malware on the move. So just in the same way that the internet allows us to connect and share ideas and opinions and skills, so us law-abiding citizens are on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn and in Pinterest and Google, and we're sharing ideas about our lives and our careers and our professions. Well, the same thing happens in the underground or the world of cyber criminals. They too have a list of all these social connections and social media and websites that they use to share ideas and figure out how to distribute their malware and re-scramble it. So a couple on this page that I'm going to talk about are in the upper left. You can't really see the website, and don't go to this website, but it's called Malcode. So if you go to malcode.com, which don't go to it, it actually has live malware and variants of viruses on there that any cyber criminal or person, teenager, or anyone can go to and download. This next website, Virus Total, this actually shows you which variants of antivirus are vulnerable to which viruses. So if someone did a little bit of recon and found out that you had McAfee or Symantec or some other antivirus running, they could go to Virus Total and find out what virus is vulnerable or could make it past that AV. Then they go to that website, Malcode, download that virus, and now they know they can get right in your network. This other tool in the upper right called Cryptor, this tool is anybody could buy this for around $100. It's a software re-scrambling package that basically takes software or takes any version of malware like Locky or CryptoLocker or Tesla, and it re-scrambles it and makes it a brand new version of malware. Real easy to do, and this is pretty much how all the cyber criminals are doing it nowadays. They hear about some new virus like or malware like WannaCry or Petya, and once there's patches made for it, they just run it through Cryptor, and now it's brand new. So what exactly is ransomware? I'm assuming most of you all know what ransomware is, but I'll just cover it again quickly for you. Ransomware is a form of computer malware that restricts access to your computer or its information while demanding that you pay a ransom to get your information back. A little fun trivia for you. What year was the first ransomware written? I'll give you a little hint. It was called the Age Trojan. I'm just giving you a quick second to think about it. But while you're thinking, I will give you the answer. The first year that ransomware was ever written was back in 1989, and it was distributed on a 5.5-inch floppy disk. So maybe what this file did is it hid directories and encrypted files, and it said you need to mail a check for $189 to a PO box, and you'll get the key to get all your files back. Well, obviously the gentleman who created this, Dr. Joseph Hopp, was caught and charged with blackmail, but got off as mentally unfit. But just kind of an interesting story. Kind of funny that someone would mail a floppy disk out and then say, mail me a check, and think they're not going to get caught. But why are we still talking about malware and ransomware today? So $209 million, that's why we're talking about it. But that $209 million is actually how much money was collected in the first 3 months of 2016. Last year, ransomware became $1 billion industry. So it's a legitimate business now. So we're going to talk a little bit about TeslaCrypt. TeslaCrypt was originally written and designed to target Call of Duty and World of Warcraft players. But the authors of the virus quickly realized that people who are hanging out in their folks' basement playing video games don't really have money, and they can't really afford to pay ransoms. So they actually changed their target and started going after the end user computer world. So TeslaCrypt is actually an original malware. It doesn't share any code with CryptoLocker, which a lot of the modern ransomwares are variants of. So TeslaCrypt also uses a Cisco encryption method that no tools can currently decrypt. The other really unique thing about TeslaCrypt is that I'm sure you've heard that you have to pay your ransom in Bitcoins. If you don't know how to set up Bitcoins, which I heard is fairly challenging, it actually has a support center. So you can click on support and get help to set up your Bitcoins and pay your ransom. Yes, we're probably thinking the same thing as you are. That's pretty ridiculous. So Mercop is another unique version of ransomware that emerged in 2016, and it's kind of unique in that it uses a scare tactic, blaming the victim of actually stealing from them. It allows you to open your files, but they're unreadable. It's kind of on record as demanding one of the biggest ransoms at 32,000 Bitcoins, which came out to about $48 billion. I believe that one was not paid. So malware truly has become the top threat. So kind of looking back on my history and talking about what a next-gen firewall is, a standard next-gen firewall just running intrusion prevention and application control with antivirus on the desktop, it's simply not enough nowadays. And that's what, honestly, a lot of customers have that exact configuration. But when you saw those previous slides, 400,000 variants of malware coming in every day, depending on antivirus at the endpoint, it really isn't enough. I mean, you have to have it to defend all the previous threats, but the market is starting to shift and the landscape starting to shift into going into more behavior heuristics and looking at the behavior of files. And we'll dig a little bit more into that. And like I said, this was a strong defense 10 years ago, but now that malware is the preferred payload that cyber criminals are using, coming right in your front door, right through email, right through encrypted web traffic, you really have to start diversifying the layers of security. So cyber criminals are definitely targeting everyone, but in particular, there's also an emphasis focused on the small and medium business enterprise, mainly because they're looked at as the less protected and the low-hanging fruit. And cyber criminals use sometimes a lot of the smaller and medium businesses to get to some of the larger companies, kind of like what happened with Target, unfortunately. The other thing is small companies still have data that's worth big money. And automated attacks are out there as well, where they look for pretty much any victim. And I'll tell you a little bit about automated attacks as we move forward here. According to Visa reports, small businesses represented more than 90% of the payment breaches reported to their company. Well, this link here, I don't want to pull it up on this webinar because I think there have been a few internet challenges here up in the North Central, so I'm just going to show this website to you. This is an active interactive map by Kaspersky that'll actually show you every one of those lines you see, the blue and the pink and the green. If you go to that link, you'll see them running in real time. And those are actually real variants of malware and viruses being sent around the globe in real time. And a lot of those are being sent through push servers. So historically, when you pictured someone sitting at a desk trying to manually get into your network, sure, that still happens. But there's also a lot of servers and computers that are downloading that software from Malcode on their own, scrambling it through Crypto on its own, and then distributing it all autonomously. So anyone who has an email address that's anywhere on the internet is a potential target for some of this ransomware to be sent to you. We're going to move slightly here now into what you can actually do to secure your network. 3 steps for a secure network. Number 1, and this is really probably hands down the most important, not only just for your business, but for yourself, even for me personally, is just awareness. Phishing and web browsing awareness training, which some of our partners like ETS could actually provide for you, is really critical. Just getting your employees aware of all the phishing tactics that come out. I have a story too, just recently, where I received an email from one of my coworkers and it had the gentleman's name on it. It came into my inbox, said, "Hey John, this is what I was talking about, check it out." And it had a link on there, and just being extra cautious, I didn't click on it, and I looked at the email and I noticed that it had the gentleman's name, but the email address was a strange email that I didn't recognize. So that's definitely something that you want to kind of think about and consider doing that for your employees. So what is the hardest part of securing a network? Definitely is training employees. You obviously want to have that security, perimeter defense, and endpoint security, but also awareness is really absolutely critical. The U.S. government agencies alone, so this is even in the government space, there have been over 94 million citizen records taken since 2009, and each record has an estimated cost of around $200. So that's even in the government arena that this is happening. So the malware is all over in every vertical. Number 2 is to have a good backup strategy. So we definitely recommend having offline backups, not just having your backups in the cloud or on a mapped network drive. That's definitely not going to work if you end up getting some malware ransomware that has the ability to go up into your cloud, which some of them do, or connect to all of your drives and push its encryption out to every single file that you have authorization to access. So you want to have good backups and good backup strategy, and make sure that those backups are also offline. You can certainly work with your IT service provider like ETS or other to have a plan on how to back up all your important data. And as I said previously, have your backup stored in multiple locations with at least one offsite, and ideally develop a recovery plan so that you're not kind of coming in at the last second if you did get breached and winging it. You definitely want to have a plan in place in advance, maybe even go through an exercise and test it out. How to stop malware in its tracks using defense in depth. So there's no silver bullet, but using a layered approach, which is what WatchGuard recommends. You'll see over on the right, we have all these different security layers. And the more layers of security you have, the higher chance that you have of catching an advanced threat. So in the WatchGuard firewall, which is a next generation UTM firewall, we've got the firewall itself. We have the intrusion prevention system, which is stopping your denial of service attacks that are, those came out 10, 15 years ago, but they're still around. Antivirus scanning is also very common in firewalls now. Anti-spam and reputation services. Most folks have URL filtering built in as well. WatchGuard has a very comprehensive URL filtering in our firewall with over 130 categories. Application control, APT blocker, which is very critical. I'm going to talk about that specifically because that is more of the behavior-based defense at the firewall layer. Botnet detection, and then some type of endpoint security that complements your antivirus that can also operate in a zero-day function. So advanced threat protection catches zero-day. So the market is shifting into using behavior heuristics so that we're not just looking at what the file looks like and requiring that the DAT file be up to speed. We're actually looking at what is this file doing, and how do we do that in a safe environment is using this APT blocker. So APT blocker is a security service that comes with WatchGuard firewalls that either as an individual service or it's included with our total security suite in one package. And what it does is it virtualizes a full system of a computer. It takes that file and it runs the content in a protected environment so that the malware actually believes it's inside your computer. It analyzes that file for behavior. Is it trying to access the registry? Is it trying to access system files, make changes? If it detects malicious behavior based on your settings and your parameters that you set, you can actually quarantine or delete the file. And the unique thing about WatchGuard with our zero-day malware protection is we use Last Lines, who WatchGuard actually acquired recently, and it does full, complete system emulation. So toward the beginning of this presentation, you saw that there are over 500 evasive techniques malware is using. So malware knows that there are sandboxes out there. So sometimes the very first thing malware is going to do is it looks around and says, am I in a sandbox? If I'm in a sandbox, then don't do anything, stay dormant. So what WatchGuard can do is we actually emulate the full system. So we know that malware might be looking for memory or a BIOS or something real specific to a computer. And if it's not there, the malware knows it's in a sandbox. So with ours, it actually emulates that BIOS. It emulates memory and processes in the operating system. So the malware has no way to detect if it's in a sandbox or not. It truly believes it's in your system. The other thing that WatchGuard has done recently is we actually acquired a next generation enterprise-based antivirus or malware defense appliance for the edge or for the endpoint called TDR, Threat Detect and Response, which is considered an antivirus on steroids, but with remediation and correlation. And I'll expand a little bit on that in a second here. So I just want to give you a snapshot of what these security layers look like. So we've got our antivirus, our URL filtering, intrusion prevention, app control, APT blocker, and also the TDR service, which I want to expand a little bit more on right here. So in order to use TDR, which is also part of our total security suite, which, again, just like APT blocker, this can be purchased as an individual appliance or part of the security package. You install a host sensor on the endpoint, and mainly what this host sensor does is it has a correlation engine that collects security events from the endpoint and the network and utilizes third-party threat feeds and can actually correlate what's going on with that virus or that malware and give it a ranking, log it, report it, remediate it, and stop it. Most importantly, I've actually seen my engineer download in an isolated system TeslaCrypt, taking it on heads up with TDR. And as soon as my engineer downloaded that file to the desktop, TDR will, before even clicking on it, it's already analyzing and scanning the file and deletes it right from the desktop before you can even click on it. And then as a second test, we've actually clicked on it before the TDR could complete its scan, and it still stopped it, remediated it, changed any registry entries back to the way they were, and deleted the file. So it's a very effective behavior heuristics, zero-day endpoint security appliance that we recommend that all of our customers consider putting this on their computers to complement their antivirus. So the TDR licensing it's included with our total security suite per firewall. So you'll see that we have all of our newer firewalls are the T and the M series. And based on the size of the firewall, we're just going to automatically include some of these host sensors. Certainly customers can expand on this if they want to cover every system if they have more than what the firewall's included host sensors are. So moving into WatchGuard's total security suite, I won't cover every one of these since I discussed them previously, but if you're interested in getting this PDF, I'd be happy to share this with you. So historically, on the top side of this, you'll see our fundamental security services. This is what WatchGuard had sold for many years, up until just the last few years, where you started to see all the malware is spreading so rampant. So we had to evolve our security services and add APT blocker, and eventually we ended up adding the threat detect and response, and we bundled all of these security services, both the advanced services and the fundamental, into a single license called Total Security. So it's one part number per whichever firewall our customers decide is a good fit for them, and we take care of all the licenses in that one single part number. So a little bit about WatchGuard and why we're so unique in the UTM market. So back in 2003, when the next generation firewall verbiage kind of took the market by storm, which was really just a router with intrusion prevention and app control, WatchGuard was pioneering UTM firewalls, which is basically the same thing, but with more layers of security than just that. We're including the antivirus and URL filtering and more. And because our operating system has been evolved specifically around this layered approach, you're going to see that our performance is much higher. Oftentimes, some of our competitors won't publish their secure threat speed. They'll just publish their stateful firewall speed. And it's, generally, you're not going to run a firewall without any security services, right? So really the secure threat prevention speed, or in WatchGuard's verbiage, UTM speed, is the only speed that's relevant. And you'll see that WatchGuard is hands down faster in every class consistently when you have these security services running, which everyone should be running. So final things to remember for this presentation is awareness, and making sure that you're training your employees and that they're aware of different phishing tactics that cyber criminals are utilizing. Have good backups, especially offsite backups, and looking at having defense in depth, having multiple layers of security from the edge all the way to the endpoint to help you protect your customers and as well as your company. So thank you. I really appreciate all the time that you've given me today. And I want to kind of open it up if anyone had any questions. If I know the answer, I'd be more than happy to answer those for you right now.
Yeah, John, did any question or comments come in from the audience?
Let me see. Yeah, I've got one question about fire clusters. So someone had a question about how does WatchGuard work in a fire cluster? That's a very good question. WatchGuard is actually unique in the market with our fire clusters. So we're the only company I know of that can offer an active passive fire cluster where you only need to purchase a single set of licenses. So we sell a high availability firewall that's the backup. And when you're doing a fire cluster, the single set of license can actually transfer from the primary to the backup firewall should there be an issue or a power surge or something that brings that primary down, and that license can just transfer. Where with other companies, you're generally buying 2 fully licensed firewalls to create that cluster, even though one's not even in use. Were there any other questions? If not, I just wanted to show one thing real quick to the folks attending this webinar, just because I think it's really important. I'll go through this in about 5 minutes here. So this is Dimension. This is WatchGuard's logging and reporting tool. It's one of the main reasons a lot of customers choose us, so I think it's important that you see this. Kind of when I was showing at the beginning of this presentation that visibility is key. And Dimension has actually won several awards and for its logging reporting as well as actual reports for like PCI or HIPAA. I did say my internet was a little bit slow here from our ISP's been having some challenges, so hopefully this will load up for us. Angelique, did you see any other questions while I'm trying to pull this up for us?
I don't, John, no.
All right, well, I'll see if I can get my internet to work. If not, I will conclude. Okay, here it came up. Can you see my screen, Angelique?
Yes.
Okay, I'll assume all the other folks on here can see it. So I'll go through this relatively quickly for you. So this is included with every WatchGuard firewall, as Dimension. It's a monitoring and reporting tool where you can actually see how long has your firewall been up, how much memory is being utilized, what version of firmware it's running, what model it is. And there's two dashboards in particular I'm going to bring to your attention. One is the executive dashboard, where the executive dashboard is going to show all the information that you allow on your firewall. So basically all the traffic that's going through your firewall that you allow from your policies. Where the security dashboard is going to show everything that's been denied on your firewall. Are you able to see that, Angelique? I'm just going to ask you since I can hear from you.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. Sorry for the lag loading. So the executive dashboard that you see here, so if you had a WatchGuard firewall in your environment and you had Dimension loaded, you can actually see who the top clients in your network are, how much bandwidth they're using, what URL categories they're utilizing the most, the top domains that they're going to, and quite a bit more, top applications. So this is all the traffic that you allow on your network. So and you can certainly customize this in all your subscription services. Now the second dashboard, which is the security dashboard, this is all the traffic that you're blocking with your security services. Your APT blocker stopped malware 3 times. You can actually go in there another layer and find out that Bob Johnson keeps on clicking on this file, but it's actually malware. So you can go over and talk to Bob and say, Bob, you might want to quit clicking on that. You can also go down to the top block clients and see who on your network is actually getting blocked the most. This is also able to integrate with Active Directory. So where you see IP addresses on here, you can actually set that up so you do see usernames and instead of IP addresses. So I didn't want to spend too much time on that. I just wanted to show a quick snapshot because I think that's a highlight of WatchGuard. A lot of customers really appreciate that about us, and we certainly appreciate all the time that you've given us today. And If there's anything else, there's my contact information on the slide, and you have Angelique's contact information. Please let us know if there's anything else we can do for you or answer for you. And thank you so much for your time.
Great. Thank you so much, John, and thank you everybody for joining us today. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. You as well.